before you, how it has been created of nothing but their determination and their dreaming, how it has taken its form from an ancient hope that drew them forward and made a way for them when no way could be seen. Look closer and you will see this blessing is not finished, that you are part of the path it is preparing, that you are how this blessing means to be a voice within the wilderness and a welcome for the way. So what I would like for us LaMasons to do this morning is to share a little bit about ourselves with Steve and Frank. And the way that I would suggest we do that is I will try to emulate the technique used by others recently, which is calling on about 3 people in a row, having them unmute themselves, introduce themselves, and then the next 3. And it'll be in the order in which I see you on my screen, which may or may not be the order that you see yourselves. So I would suggest that folks use 3 descriptors for themselves. It could be roles in your life, jobs, professional related stuff, hobbies, passions, whatever words you want to choose today to describe yourself. And then if you could say something about what keeps you committed to this La Mesa community, or if anyone is newer to us, what makes you interested in learning more about this community? What brings you back to going deeper? So I will ask, let's go in this order, Beth and Bob and Howard. Let's do Beth, Bob, and Howard.
I'm Bob Ruby, been a member of La Mesa 30 plus years, head of property. That's about it.
Keeps you coming.
It keeps me coming, the people. And as a retired architect, there's more than enough to do around the facility. Never seems to be lacking in regards to that. That's where I am. Yours.
Beth Paycheck, likewise, a 30 plus year member. Chair the Social Justice Committee, chair personnel this year, part of the bridge team, just involved in a few things. And it's the people and the social justice program at the church that absolutely keep me involved, and happy to be a part of and proud to be a part of La Mesa.
I guess I'm next. Hi guys, I know both of you well. Worked with Steve together. Good to see you again, Steve. And you too, Frank, know you well. So I hang around at La Mesa because I need people.
And we need you. Okay, Cindy, Charlene, and then Donnice and Dave.
Okay, hi, I'm Cindy Mars, and I've been a member of La Mesa for about 10 years. And yeah, it's the social justice focus of La Mesa is part of it. It's the people. It's the people that keep bringing me back, that's so, but the social justice focus is important to me. And it's just been, I've just learned so much, and good to be here. Welcome. Who's next?
Charlene.
Okay, I'm Charlene Henderson. I think I'm a fairly new member, transferred here 3 years ago. I love the community. I'm very interested in mission. And I guess my passion in my later years now, the last 8 years, I've worked with refugees. And I still teach a Zoom class every week with them. So I hope to continue for a few more years. So, done.
I'm Donnie Mayfield. We're friends of La Mesa and have been for, oh gosh, more than 10 years. What originally brought us was the music when David was running the choir and that sort of thing. What has kept us is the community, the people. It's an amazing community. I brag about it all the time. The food pantry, the Arts Academy, social justice. It's a good fit for us. We've been very happy there and plan to stay there. I've known Frank from St. Andrew. I was the musician over at St. Andrew years ago and knew him when we were over there. I'm looking forward to getting acquainted with Steve. That's about it for me. Your turn.
I'm Dave Bailey. I think 3 descriptive words that I would use to describe myself are computer scientist, runner, singer. Like everybody else, it's the people that keep me coming to La Mesa.
Thank you. Okay, Lois, Chris, and then Judy and Bill.
Hi, my name is Lois Meyer. How would I describe myself? I guess first would be teacher. I recently retired from UNM, although I continue to keep teaching. And I would say also collaborator. I have worked for over 20 years with Indigenous teachers in Oaxaca, Mexico. That's a very big part of my life. And the other would be linguist. A big focus on translation and languages is part of my life. I first came to La Mesa, I don't even know how many years ago, I think maybe 15, because of the activism. I'm a longtime Lutheran, but I didn't find that activism in Lutheran churches locally here. But I also want to say something, and that has to do with the spirituality of the congregation. I have appreciated that focus on a deeper spirituality. And welcome.
I'm Chris Walseth. I have been a member of La Mesa for almost 36 years now. What brought me there originally was the music and worship program. What has kept me there is the community and, as others have said, the social justice focus. But also, I totally agree with Lois, the spirituality. And I think that with Trey, especially the addition of a lot of the Celtic spirituality has been a large factor. Outside of that, I'm a teacher. I am trying to survive a year of online teaching and very, very much looking forward to July when I hope to say I'm retired. So I just recently this month went back on session, and I have served Christian education and on worship committees, and I will be on the worship committee this year. So I look forward to working with both of you there. So welcome.
Judy Belvin. I know Frank really well and have met Steve and look forward to having him at La Mesa. We came to La Mesa because we lived in the neighborhood, were young and had 2 little kids, and I grew up Presbyterian. And now we're approaching 60 years being at La Mesa.
Wow.
So. A long time. I've been on many committees, sang in the choir, been clerk forever. I'll leave it at that.
Bill Belvin, what she said about when we got here, and I've been serving, excuse me, I've served as an elder since the late 70s, off and on, depending on where I was at when I was working. These last few years, I've been involved in the financial stuff since 2010, I think. And right now I'm been treasurer to have replaced Joan Luke. Hi, Joan.
Hi, Bill.
And she done a bang up job, a lot better than I've been doing. But
Oh,
anyway,
that's not true.
it's kind of hard when your career was in the electrical business to become a financial business person. So if anyone wants to try it, I'd be glad to help them out.
Thank you, Bill. Next, Pat, and then Diane Becker, and then Diane Taylor.
Hi, I'm Pat Laws, and I've been at La Mesa, I think, about 6 years. Career background in not-for-profit management, and worked at the Presbytery in New York City and Union Seminary. And so I've always been attracted to spirituality and progressive theology. And when I moved out here 20-some years ago, I looked around, and George Todd from New York, who was my boss, told me about La Mesa. And so that's why I ended up here. And I have enjoyed the people. I enjoy the sense of mission and commitment. I've worked with a lot of congregations in the Presbytery back east, but I can tell you that La Mesa is unique in terms of its commitment to the ministries that we participate in. So that's it for me. I'm so happy. I served on personnel, and I'm grateful that Frank and Steve and Beth have agreed to serve. And I look forward to all of you finding out what we found out about them and why they're here. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Diane Becker. And I came to La Mesa 7 years ago. The reason I came was because of Cindy Mars. She's been a good friend of mine for years and years. And she talked about La Mesa and what a great church it was and how happy she was there. And so I asked if I could come one day. And she said, sure. And I've been at La Mesa ever since. The reason is I like the spirituality. I like the conscientious work that La Mesa does for the neighborhood and for the whole city, and so on and so on and so on. I think the main thing is the love that is given to me all the time. And I try to give it back. I have served as a deacon. I have taught elementary Sunday school and kids club, and I taught high school, Sunday school, high school. I haven't done anything for a while because of my health, but I am still hoping to be able to fit in doing some type of work for La Mesa because they've done so much for me. Thank you. Good. I'm glad to see you guys. Thank you, Frank.
I'm Diane Taylor. My husband Richard and I have been attending La Mesa, we think about 15 years. We can't remember the exact date. My husband is a retired United Methodist pastor. And one of the reasons we came to La Mesa is that most of the United Methodist churches are way too conservative for us here in New Mexico. And we very, very much appreciate the commitment to the International District and to all the social justice issues. I would also say the music
kept us coming back. And most importantly, the people. We found a very wonderful community of people there. I have been on the deacons. I have been on the worship committee. And mostly I've done the Advent book editing for 7 or 8 years. And that's easy for me to do because we live in Rio Rancho and I can do it from home. We can't be as active at La Mesa as we would really like to be because we live in Rio Rancho and it takes us quite a while to get into La Mesa. Anyway, we welcome you, Frank and Steve, and look forward to getting to know you.
Thank you, Diane. Okay, next let's have Marty and then Andrew and then Holly.
Marty Bruner with the Belvins. According to our register, we joined on the same day in 1962. We don't remember that, but that's what the register shows. I am a inactive elder at the present time. I've been on most every committee except finance. I am involved with the Connectional Church. I am on Presbytery. I'm also on Synod Committee. I felt like I was at home the first time I walked through the door at La Mesa, and it hasn't changed much since then. La Mesa is my family. When I had trouble with one of my kids, absolutely, La Mesa was one of my big family. When my husband died, La Mesa was my family. The music program has always kept me involved and happy. I, as most of you know, swim every day. It helps keep me walking. That's all I can say. Frank, I'm so glad to see you a part of us. I've known you well for quite a while. And I miss your lovely wife. Maybe I'll get to see her more now. I look forward to meeting Stephen. I cannot place you, Stephen. I'm anxious to see your picture pass by on my screen this morning, see if I can figure out why I can't remember you by name. I guess that's more than enough. Thank you, Susan.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I joined La Mesa, it's like a year and a half ago. And I joined because of location and theology and the social justice work. And I'm a new elder and I'm a chemical engineer. I'm not a civil engineer, so I can't say for too heavy to have a bridge, but thank you all for being our bridge team.
Holly?
Holly Meyer, excuse me, I've got a little bit of a cold here, so I'm not sure if I can speak clearly. Holly Meyer, I've been a member of La Mesa for about 3 years. My husband and I have been friends of La Mesa for probably 10 years. And I have my career background is in education in a variety of capacities, both in administrative and classroom and private and public sector, and happy to work closely with Susan Fillet in the Christian education arm of our church. And I'm here at La Mesa because of the people. And happy to be here. And Steve and Frank, we're just so grateful you're joining us, and I look forward to meeting you, getting to know you more.
Thank you.
Thanks, Holly. Okay, next, Betsy, and then Alice Scott, and then Joan. You're on mute, Betsy.
Okay. I'm Dr. Betsy Diaz, and
I'm a retired counselor, teacher, early interventionist, community organizer. I love music and people and creativity and community outreach and advocacy. And I have worked over the years with many kinds of, done many kinds of work with children and families, primarily diverse and distressed ones. And my faith has deepened in the 30 years I've been at La Mesa. And I love doing the advocacy work and applying faith in community.
Alice, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me? Yep. Okay, I'm sorry I don't have a picture up. I don't know how to do it. But I'm here anyway, in spirit and in voice. I'm just so glad to be here and glad to be a part of La Mesa. It's been a wonderful 10 years for me, almost 11 maybe. And I joined the church mainly because my children were here at the time. And I didn't have a whole lot of faith, but that didn't matter to Trey. He was just so wonderful and welcoming. And I've grown so much, I hope. And I'm a retired ESL teacher from Louisiana. And I'm a almost retired grandmother because my children are about to outgrow me. But I'm just blessed in a lot of ways. And I love La Mesa because of the mission that we have, and of course, the people. And I too look forward to getting to know Frank and Steve.
Joan?
I'm Joan Luke. My husband and I joined La Mesa in 2004. We were referred here by the music director of another Presbyterian church because he thought Bill would do better under David's direction. And so we came on a Sunday. Bill went to choir on Wednesday and we joined that next Sunday. So I guess the person was correct. 3 things to describe myself. I think I'm loyal. I think I'm hardworking. And I bring to the church a Chicago sense of humor, which is borders on sarcasm. So be patient with me if you see it coming out of my mouth. And Alice, I know how to put my picture up. I just choose not to. I've served La Mesa, as Bill said, as the treasurer. Shortly after we joined, I was on the mission committee and then on the finance committee. And what keeps me coming here, and I'm going to tear up because I always do, is the fact that everybody's, like Marty said, everybody's family. And I miss getting my hugs. Obviously, the music under every choir director, David, Fred, and Leon is just so moving and so wonderful. So that keeps me coming back. And then the programs, especially the local programs in the International District with, well, when we had it, Feast of Hope, and working with the elementary school and the food pantry. And I just love it here. And Steve and Frank, you're walking into a wonderful situations, and we're prepared to greet you with open arms and open hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Next, Louisa, and then Margaret, and then Winona.
I'm Louisa Doran. I've been at La Mesa 31 years last month, and I'm support staff for different community grant-funded programs. What keeps me coming back? The people, the commitment to the community, and the love and the spirituality, and the opportunities we've had to learn about different kinds of spirituality. Thank you.
Margaret?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'm Margaret Bushnell, and I have been here 1 year less than Trey was here because I came just about a year after he got here. I came after about 50 years in Maine and a small community church in Maine that does with working with the community. Only it was country and instead of city, but we were very active in that church. And when I came here, I wanted to be a part of an active church. And I had read in Presbyterian Life that they had a children's school here that I thought I would fit into because I retired after 20 some odd years teaching. And there's not been a day when I was sorry. There's ever since. I'm in a retirement home now, and every Sunday's message reminds me of something I can do to help people around me, and I'm pleased to be here. Do I have to say something else?
No, you did just beautifully. Thank you, Margaret. Winona?
Winona Poole at La Mesa for around 30 years, I think, if not 31. One interesting little tidbit for people, when I, well, actually before I came to La Mesa, I was a teacher at Manal School, and I was told that I was replacing Frank Yates.
Thank you, Winona.
I'm sure I was a shock to their system, Frank. You were much more the intellectual than I was. But I came to La Mesa actually because of David. He got a job as the music director at La Mesa, and so I just came because he was here. And first volunteered as a youth leader and did a lot of drama stuff, and eventually became the kids club director, eventually became the Arts Academy director and created the Arts Academy, and did that for 11 years. And then David decided to retire, and we, in theory, went to Ghost Ranch to start a new career. And that was a horrendous experience. And so when we came back, you know, it was sort of this question of where do we go now? But there was never any hesitation on my part. I wanted to go home. And home for me was La Mesa. And even though I've had many different kinds of, you know, jobs, you might say, at La Mesa, it's always been like everyone else is saying, it's the people, the family, the spiritual base that allows us to explore and to challenge our faith. And yes, the music, but really it's the people. And now I'm very happily retired. So
Thank you, Winona. Next, I'll ask Marlis, and then Lance, and Kip. Oh, Marlis, you're on mute.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, I'm Marlis Leslie. My husband and I joined La Mesa somewhere over 10 years ago. Like others, I've kind of lost track of the date. But anyway, we were very attracted to La Mesa because of community involvement. And when we started attending, I was very interested in the music program, very impressed by the music program. So I've been a member of the choir probably for most of those 10 years. I've served and do serve on Social Justice Committee. And I've headed up Bread for the World for, I don't know, probably 7+ years. Once again, I've kind of lost track of it. But I have always felt that La Mesa was what a church should be. And I still very much feel that way. It's a loving, supportive community, and the vision of being outside the four walls has always been very impressive to me. So it's very nice to meet you too, and look forward to seeing a lot more of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marlis. Lance?
Hello, I'm Lance Packard. I've joined up back in about 82 or 83. Howard was the minister and Bonnie was the choir director. And I joined the choir and I've been staying a member of La Mesa through several house movings. Just very glad to be here. Thank you.
Yep.
Boy, you'd think I'd have Zoom figured out by now. I'm Kip Bobroff. I came to La Mesa about 12, 14 years ago, initially because I needed an institution to be involved if I wanted to keep being involved in Albuquerque Interfaith. But shortly thereafter, I went to work for Albuquerque Interfaith as the lead organizer, and so I didn't need to come to La Mesa. But between the physical space and the emotion that I felt probably 1 out of 3 times at church, and really coming to see, I mean, I came to religion very late in life, and my entire theology is in that verse, wherever 2 or 3 are gathered. And I've experienced that many, many times, especially in this Going Deeper class. I'm thrilled to learn the story that of how Diane Becker got to La Mesa, because when a couple years after I first joined, or not joined, started coming, I was in a coffee shop and started having a conversation with Cindy Mars, and I made the same invitation to her that she made to Diane. And I'm thrilled to hear that story, Diane. I hadn't heard it before. So it was great working with Frank when he was part of when he was pastor at St. Andrews, and St. Andrews was part of Albuquerque Interfaith, and I look forward to getting to know you, Steve. So thanks.
Okay, and then Heather, and I think maybe Alice Giese is on this call. And I know Mary Lou was on it earlier. So if you're still here, Heather, go for it.
You were supposed to give me warning. Just kidding. I'm like making breakfast. I came to La Mesa 21 years ago,
in December, I think. Parker was 6 months old. Maybe it was right after Christmas. Maybe it's this month. Maybe it's today. Who knows? I had attended St. Andrews with my first husband, and I needed something very different with my new life and my new family. But I had liked the social justice aspect of St. Andrews. And I knew Chris Acklin because we both worked at Cuidando los Niños. And she spoke up La Mesa as another socially justice involved. And it happened to be right in my neighborhood. So it worked out. I have stayed because of a sense of family. I'll tell a story on you, Susan. So when Susan first moved in, Trey was like, you have to help this woman. She needs to pass a licensing exam. You have to talk to her. Can you help her? And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, for Trey. And then this great kismet of a twin who went to the same college at the same time with part of the same major, and we never met. And at one point at her mom's memorial service, somebody asked if I was her sister, and she graciously said yes. So from La Mesa, I have actually been given extra family. Did I get all the points I was supposed to?
Beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you, dear.
Alice Giese, are you with us?
She doesn't seem to have a microphone, unfortunately.
Okay, okay. And is Mary, did we miss Mary Lou somehow? Or is she
not on?
Oh, okay. Is there anyone that we did miss before Robbie and I go? It's hard to keep up. Okay, go for it, Robbie.
Well, welcome, Frank and Steve. My name's Robbie Heckman. I would, 3 descriptors, I would say dad, loving partner, archaeologist. La Mesa, I proudly represent La Mesa Presbyterian Church on the APD Forward Coalition. And that's something that's very important to me. And I think for all the same reasons that have been mentioned before, I mean, Susan and I, intentionally sought a faith community here in Albuquerque and chose La Mesa for all the reasons that people have mentioned earlier, the social justice orientation, the commitment to the immediate community in the international district there and the La Mesa community specifically. So how about you?
And I'm Susan Foulé, and today I would choose mom and someone who is incredibly blessed by really rich relationships around her in all forms, and photographer. And I think what brought us to La Mesa was partly Trey's matchmaking skills, connecting me to every social worker in the congregation, and to other families with young kids, which we were at the time. So that's what brought us, partly what brought us here, but I think also what we were both really looking for is a church whose theology and application of spirituality and social justice felt relevant to our times and to our place. And so that is what I really long for in a faith community. And I'm grateful to La Mesa for that and for so many just really lovely and fulfilling and giving relationships that we have forged over the years in this community. So thank you all for taking time to tell us about yourselves, even for those. I mean, I feel like I know all of you at least a bit, but it's still nice to kind of hear stories again and to learn more about you in surprising ways. So before Steve and Frank introduce themselves, I would love for Pat to just spend a couple minutes apprising everybody of how did we get here? How did we get to this bridge pastor phase of our journey? So.
Okay. Well, anytime there's a vacancy in a Presbyterian church, as you know, the Committee on Ministry at the Presbytery, along with the session of the church, has to work together to come up with the replacement for the minister. So we had a liaison in Catherine Robinson who came and met with the session and provided guidance for us. The session then authorized the personnel committee and three volunteers to form a committee to search for a bridge pastor, or in this case, we ended up with a pastoral team, which we're very grateful for. We collected, by talking to people in the community, we collected about 12 names. We interviewed over the phone, did screening, and we actually interviewed, I think, three people. Jim Colley was very much a part of those discussions and was very helpful to us because we were, he was in the mix as one that might be a part of this team. But in the end, we think that we have come up with the two people in terms of the pastors that closely match what we were looking for. We wanted someone or some ones with preaching talents, teaching talents, pastoral care, and administrative skills. After we developed a job description, we developed some standard questions for the interviews, and simultaneously, we were working on the ministry information form, which will be used when we're searching for the interim pastor, which will be the next stage of this process. And so in working on the MIF is what it's called, we were able to kind of think about what we were looking for, and it helped us to be clearer on the type of person or persons that we thought would be best matched for us during this period. After the interviews, using our standard questions and listening to the some preaching from each of the people that we were considering, it was very clear to us that Frank and Steve were the choices for us. We found that most of the people that we talked to did not want to be a solo pastor. They wanted to be a co-pastor because folks are busy or they're in retirement or whatever. But it was pretty clear that we were going to have at least two people and possibly three during this bridge period. And one of the suggestions that came up very early on was that we maybe should consider having a third person as part of this team, someone that was perhaps not a pastor, but someone at the church who could help support the staff and be a resource to the pastors. And so I twisted Beth's arm 3 or 4 times and asked her if she would please consider doing that. She had to think about it, and I kept, pursuing it. And we're so grateful that she agreed to do that as well. So once we got that together, we talked to the session, and then we had to present our suggestion to, once the session approved it, we had presented it to COM by way of Catherine. And with just a little tweaking, our suggestion was approved that we would ask Frank Yates and Steve Miller and Beth Paycheck to serve as our bridge team. And this team, we don't know how long they will serve, but we are hoping that it can be just a matter of months. We have our MIF form completed so that can now go into the data bank, and we can start the search for the interim pastor, which would be a period of at least a year. So someone else may talk about that process. But that's how we got there, and we're just grateful, and we just felt very comfortable in our decisions, and I think we're very happy, and we hope that you as members will also really appreciate the depth of experience and ministry and spirituality that these 3 people bring to La Mesa. So that's it. Are there questions or? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Okay, Frank and Steve, tell us about, and you can use 3 descriptors or any other formula you want, but tell us about who you are and kind of how you got here. And maybe Frank, would you like to start, and then Steve can go?
Sure. Thank you very much, Susan. It's so good to be with all of you. It's nice to hear your stories, and I've met, as you know, a number of you, and I love participating with a lot of you through Presbytery. And Judy and I have been on the Commission on Ministry, which I sometimes refer to as the Hotel California. You know, you once you get in, you can't get out. So Judy and I have been sort of prisoners of the Hotel California for a long time and enjoyed that work very much. Um, Trey came a year after I came to St. Andrew. So I came in 98 and Trey came in 99. So I'd, known Trey over the years, and we'd worked together in the Presbytery. And I have so admired La Mesa's ministry from a distance, and knowing how deeply you have been involved in that international community and other organizations like, as Kip mentioned, Albuquerque Interfaith and many others. So I've been an admirer of your congregation for a long time. In terms of who I am married to Sharon Yates, and she's now working in the Synod of the Southwest. And I've been involved in lots of other things throughout Presbytery, but I would say that when I retired at St. Andrew in 2014, I became the interim pastor up in Las Vegas, New Mexico for a year and a half. And I also worked with a team up there, and really enjoyed working with a Lutheran pastor who lived there in the city, and I would go there on the weekends. So I enjoyed that bridge opportunity. I'm so delighted to work with Beth and Steve. Steve, I've known throughout the years that I've been here in the Presbytery. Steve and I, sometimes maybe we'll talk about this. I grew up in the same denomination that Steve's serving as a minister for. So we have a lot of background there. Anyway, I'm currently teaching in several different places now. I teach at UNM and Lewis University and St. Norbert College. And I'm actually giving a lecture tomorrow morning at the Oasis program on utopian literature, if any of you are interested. It's at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. So anyway, I'm delighted to be here and part of this. I'm also working at First Pres part-time. And so it just was great talking with Pat, how the two part-time positions merged together very well. And anyway, I'm very grateful for this privilege of serving you, the people of La Mesa.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, as Frank said, I've known Frank for a long time and have worked in the Presbytery in 2 different positions, some interim spots, and also on the Presbytery staff for 4 years part-time. And in that position, I got to know a lot of Presbyterians. I grew up in Albuquerque, and I moved back to Albuquerque in 2001 because my wife, Carrie, had just finished, she had a master's work it doesn't really do much work with, and then got a master's in education from the University of Michigan and started looking for a job, and didn't really find anything near Ann Arbor where we were. But we always had kind of wanted to go back to the Southwest and New Mexico particularly, and she found a job in New Mexico, so I followed her. And I came here without having a job. But on the way here, got a call from the church I grew up in, which is Summer Del Monte Christian Church. And they said they had just lost their interim because they thought they had a pastor hired, and could I fill in for a few months? And so I did that, just a brief interim for 3 months. And in that spot, people at Church of the Good Shepherd, United Church of Christ, heard about me and talked to me. And so I was the interim there for almost 2 years. And in that spot, got to know some Presbyterians and jumped through some hoops and became the interim pastor at Belen, and from there to some other positions. And so I've been kind of in the Presbyterian circle the whole time I've been in New Mexico, and I've appreciated it. Let me back up a moment though. I wonder how many of you learned something about someone else in the congregation in this little go around? Was this informative to you? Yeah, I'm seeing everybody's hand go up. Yeah, I think this is a great forum to be able to do that. And sometimes we just assume we know the people around us, and all of a sudden we find out things that we didn't know, and that's great. Besides doing interim pastorates, I've did a little substitute teaching between things, but when I was at Church of the Good Shepherd, United Church of Christ, Doug Cowan was one of the musicians there. And after I was not the pastor there anymore, he asked me if I'd be interested in playing guitar with the group he was in, which he started, which is the Celtic Coyotes. And so I play guitar and sing with the Celtic Coyotes. Of course, we're not doing that during Zoom. It's not, we haven't tried to put together some of those things that some musical groups do. But I still do that, and I like to make up songs. I've written a lot of hymns. A few other congregations sing a few of those hymns, but not many. And we did the Celtic Coyotes. I looked it up. I had to go back and see it. It doesn't seem like this long ago. We did the Christmas Eve Celtic service at La Mesa in 2013. So if any of you were at that, you might remember back and feel some embarrassment. But that's part of my other life. And I'm a cardiovascular junkie, so I used to run a lot, and now my body won't do that as well. So I do a lot of bicycling. I'm not even able to go to the gym because of COVID restrictions and not getting any chances, so I don't go. But I do ride my bicycle, 50 to 70 miles a week, and get out on we live in the South Valley, so I ride on the Bosque Trail down by the river. And sometimes we'll ride my bike. It's been a pretty good transportation most of the time in Albuquerque. And so now I'm not having to transport very many places. And in the winter, I don't do as much of that as other times. But anyway, I guess I should say that I knew Frank, so I knew this wasn't going to be a bad scene, but I didn't know Beth, and I'm really delighted the way she has really spearheaded a lot of the coordination so that Frank and I can move into the congregation more easily than we could if we didn't have a member of the congregation helping us, integrating us into the program and what's going on. I guess I should say I'm an ecumeniac, and so it wasn't any big problem to move to the Presbyterian system. I won't say I'm non-denominational because non-denominational is disconnected. I'm interdenominational and I've worked with Presbyterians in other places, and I find the progressive mission of the Presbytery of Santa Fe. I mean, there are some exceptions, of course, but it's progressive enough that it accepts me as I am, and I'm unabashedly somebody who's been kind of clinging to the left edge of the church for over 50 years. And so this is a good place. And I've also admired the social justice aspect of La Mesa, and am delighted to have an opportunity to participate in that.
Super. Thank you both so much. It's good to learn more about you and kind of how you fit. I loved your comment in today's sermon, Steve, about flunking retirement. And I think probably many people on this call are in that situation. And you both have kind of addressed this, but if you want to add anything to it, you're both retired. You have had long careers in the church and in other venues. Was there something particular about La Mesa that made you want to do this, or how do you see that match for you? Do you want to start,
Well,
Steve?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in on that. And if you heard my sermon for today, I think there is a lot about La Mesa that attracted me. But I think basically I felt a call, and I do try to listen to those deep inner voices. And the questions that I think was being asked is what have I learned about pastoral searches, which I think applies at this point, because the one thing I've learned is that they're all different and that you can go through all the stuff, but sometimes people who have been involved in personnel matters in other venues neglect the one aspect that I think is critical, which is prayer. And where I've seen this work is when I was on the presbytery staff part-time, and my main job was new church development. And the only thing that worked in that, I worked with some great people trying to do some great stuff, and none of them came through except Camino. And the reason that came through was providence. It was that Guillermo Yela came along at the right time, and the ELC Lutherans were interested, and Presbytery was interested, and it was just some kind of synchronicity, serendipity, but I call it providence. All I did was just bring people together, and it happened. Trying to bring people together in other things, and it didn't happen. Well, what's the difference? It was, I think, the group working on that really dedicated themselves to prayer, to listening, to trying to figure out what are we really called to do and be in this moment? And that's what came about. And so my answer to what attracted me to La Mesa was this great mystery that I call God.
Amen.
Well, there are many reasons that I was attracted to La Mesa. I've already mentioned a couple of them. But when Pat called me, I trusted Pat because Pat and I had a relationship outside of all this. And when Pat started bringing up La Mesa, then I got really interested. But I'll add one other thing. I've been on the Commission on Ministry a long time, and Judy and I have both seen that some ministers can go in as interims and really help a church move forward and get over some of the fear of losing their beloved pastor, et cetera. And I just feel very strongly that La Mesa is one of the jewels of this presbytery. And as a minister living in Albuquerque and seeing what I've seen on the COM, that there have been some really great interims and then not so much interims, that I really wanted to contribute what I could with what talents I have, along with Steve and Beth, to help La Mesa move forward. I also want to just mention that having been at St. Andrew 15 and a half years, Trey was with y'all for 21 years. I also recognized what a big blow it is when a church loses a beloved long-term pastor. And I have some experience with that. And maybe I thought I could be of help in kind of moving the wheels forward. And our goal really is pretty simple, is to help y'all get positioned to get a really solid interim, full-time interim, I guess, to help y'all move into the next era of your church's life. So I think my experience on the COM honestly had some a lot of bearing on this, and I'm pleased and grateful to be a part of it.
We're pleased you're with us. And so both of you have served in interim roles in different places and at different times. What have you learned about congregations? What are kind of the lessons about what's required to make a healthy, strong, relatively cohesive movement through this transition process? And Steve, you've talked about that a little bit, but you may want to add to what you've already, the beauty that you've already shared. And Frank, maybe you want to start us off.
Did you say for me?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
When I went to Las Vegas, New Mexico, it's a church that's very progressive, much like La Mesa and St. Andrew. And what I saw first of all was this sense that we've lost our pastor, the center of the hub, the key player that does this, that, and the other. And really the first and biggest issues was who's going to do X when Randy Campbell always did X, and who's going to do Y when Randy Campbell always did that. And well, there's no Randy Campbell, and so he was the beloved pastor there for many years too. And I think that one of the biggest issues, honestly, and I will deal with this, I guess, in the first session meeting, is to make sure we know what are the pieces that Trey, really specialized in, that will we pick that up, or will we let that die, or how will we massage the ministry of the church when Trey did so much, and so it's kind of rearranging the chairs in the church a little bit, and also a pastor is more than just an administrator. A pastor is a spiritual cheerleader, and who's going to provide some of the enthusiasm and the impetus to keep the ministry going. So it's twofold. It's helping the church realize what are the pieces that the minister did that we can do, or how are we going to adjust that? And secondly, the kind of spiritual enthusiasm. And in the little sermonette that will come on the screen for y'all, I guess today, I really want to focus on hope. That we really are commanded to hope, and not let ourselves be subject to despair. Oh, well, it's all, everything's undone. Trey's gone, blah, blah. No, God is with us. We are in good hands, in God's hands, right? And Steve and Beth and I will do our little part, and you'll do your little part, and it'll be okay.
Amen. Thank you. You want to add to?
Okay. What brings? I'll add a little bit. You are the church. That's the bottom line. Is that Trey is not the church. Trey is a valuable part of the foundation that helped build where the church is today. And there will be people who leave because Trey is no longer around, and you will grieve. And you will grieve the loss of Trey. And that's inevitable. At the same time, your enthusiasm and some of what I heard about people inviting other people, you don't have to stop that because it's gone. Really, you were inviting people to La Mesa because of Trey, but you were inviting people to La Mesa because of La Mesa.
Right.
And you can keep on doing that. The church has lost a lot in losing Trey, but some other things will be gained. Let me refer just a little bit to Church of the Good Shepherd, UCC. That's a church that has been through conflict over a lot of things. They went through conflict over a hymnal thing before I got there, and lost a lot of people. A lot of them went over to Sandia Presbyterian, which they found to be conservative and to fit their needs. But a lot of them just went off to other things. But as the church developed its worship style and did some other things, other new people came in. Then while I was there, they had already started the process, and I finished it. Well, I didn't finish it. The church finished it with me helping them, of becoming what they call open and affirming, which means it's open and affirming to gay, lesbian, to everybody. And they lost a lot of people over that. And then other people came in, and the church is thriving today. You gain some and you lose some, and people have to make their choices. And I would say that the churches that I've seen that really thrive because they stay with their identity, and they don't back off because somebody doesn't like it. You try to bring those people in, you reach out to them as family, but if they decide to go away, then that's their decision. And you still love them and accept them, but you don't try to hold on to them by compromising who you are. And I see that working in various places. Maybe that's enough.
Thank you. Thank you. I think the reminder both of that we are the church as a community and that we need to know who we are, regardless of what happens out of that in some ways. If we're true to our heart and our heart is a spiritual community, we will come out of things okay. Thank you. Last of my questions for the two of you is, how do you plan to divide or share the roles and tasks on that job description while you're at La Mesa? And anyone or both of you can answer that however you want.
Maybe I should ask a question. Beth, has the congregation seen the job description that you did so marvelously for us?
You mean with the roles and responsibilities?
Yes.
Session has seen it, but we've sent it out to the whole congregation.
Okay. The reason I mentioned that is that that's kind of been lined out pretty carefully through Beth's work. Do you want us to go through it a little bit more, Susan?
If you can do that roughly, I don't know how.
Okay.
You don't have to go detail in.
Well, let me just say what I'm going to do, and then maybe Steve and Beth can, chime in. As I understand it, Steve and I are going to alternate preaching responsibilities, and then I'm going to moderate the session and work with finance and property sort of things. And then Steve and I will divide up the pastoral care with the deacons on the weeks that we're not preaching. We'll take on the pastoral care responsibilities. And maybe I'll just stop there. Maybe Steve and Beth want to say what they're going to do.
Well, I do what Beth said. Beth really is the coordinator of the team, and she's extremely cooperative, listening, and is great at just helping us figure out where we're needed and what we can do. That being said, I'm sure on my part, there will be some things that I don't do because I forget, or because I didn't understand, or because I just didn't get in the loop. And I think this is going to be especially so during the pandemic lockdown. This makes it really awkward to move in. This kind of forum, I think, is terrifically helpful. But the other thing that we're going to need, that I'm going to need, is for people to tell me when I don't do something they think I was supposed to do, so I can tell Beth and Frank that they should have done that.
Good one. Do you want to add anything, Beth?
Well, I mean, working with Frank and Stephen, I think, as you can see, it's going to be a joy to work with them. But my other responsibilities are working with staff. So for this interim period, I'll be head of staff, which is really easy because we have a great staff and I've worked with them for a long time. And obviously I'll continue working with the social justice program. We'll bring in Steve and Frank as needed, but we've got a great team. I think that part's going to be just business as usual.
One thing I might add, Susan, is that I think I'm going to be coming in typically to the office and being of service if needed regarding the food distribution on Monday. And Beth, I think you're doing that Tuesday, is that right? And then on Wednesday, we come in and film the service. And oh my goodness, your staff, oh gosh, they're amazing. I mean, truthfully. And then Steve will come in and again do the work on Friday. So none of the three of us are necessarily going to be there on Thursday unless I guess there's a need for us.
And this week, Frank and I are switching because Frank has the Oasis thing tomorrow. So I'll be there Monday and he'll be there Friday. And that may happen again. So I guess the bottom line is one of us will be there 8:30 to 11:30 Monday and Friday.
Yes.
And Beth will be there at least on Tuesday, but she seems to be there a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just this week to get started. I hope not to be there 4 days a week.
We hope that for you, and we all try to do what Beth tells us to do or asks us to do, because she is a fearless and kind and gentle and wise leader, and we're so grateful to you for so many things, and Bob as well. You are quite the powerhouse team. Thank you. So just to kind of explain this format, we have heard questions from people about the process, about Steve and Frank, about how this all works. It is complicated in the Presbyterian Church. And so what we tried to do today is kind of compile a lot of those questions we've heard from you so that everybody could hear the answers together. That's kind of the method behind the madness. And so one of the questions that came up, and Beth, if you could help address this, is that Trey, as Frank was saying, was involved in every darn thing in this church and so much of our social justice. He was originally at least the hub of. That's how we got involved with Albuquerque Interfaith and with La Mesa Elementary and with so many of the things that we are committed to. Especially as far as social justice. So now that he has retired, what is the plan? What's going to happen?
So if I backtrack a little bit, I mean, initially Trey was thinking about retiring in September. And Pat and I had a conversation and kind of went, with the pandemic and everything going on, we're not ready for that. Yeah. And so we met with him and kind of twisted his arm and convinced him to delay his retirement. Bless his heart, he was open to that. And what that did was it gave us an opportunity on the Social Justice Committee, to start doing some strategic planning, because Trey he was involved in everything. And in many of the initiatives, he was the key person, the only person from our group who was on that. And that was kind of frightening. So I went back and looked, was in August. The team, we devoted the majority of our committee meetings to strategic planning and looking at, what do we want life in the Social Justice Committee to look like after Trey? And so we went through, we prioritized the initiatives that we were working on as a team. Then we started looking at, who were logical people who could take over various areas of the social justice program. Now, admittedly, Trey is still on the board of directors of many organizations that we support. But the team believes in those so much that we found people on the team. We recruited a couple who were not initially on the team, but felt like they were the right people to become the liaisons. We had meetings with the new person and the organization to build that start building the relationship. We set plans in place for meetings now that Trey is retired and how we're going to continue working together. So I really don't see us changing our social justice focus. I think we're going to continue because of the hard work that Trey did with us to help us learn to do it ourselves.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all of the time and thoughtfulness that went into finding the right people to be liaisons and leaders. And oh, Steve, did you want to say something?
Well, I just noticed that when Winona had posted in the chat about what you can do to help. And I think, you know, we've been dealing with that all along. It's basically do what you're doing and be open and responsive. But, you know, at the moment, I can't think of anything specific that is going to fall through the cracks. But I think there will be things. And if everybody's aware and sees how you can help and how you can put a spotlight on the things that need spotlighted, that would be the beginning of the answer.
Thank you so much. And you just spotlighted one of my weaknesses, which is I can't read and listen at the same time. So I'm really bad at following chats, especially if I'm asking questions. So thank you. Judy and perhaps Frank, if you'd like to jump into this as people who've been deeply involved in the Committee on Ministry, can you describe what the next steps for our congregation are from now? We're in the bridge phase. Where do we go from here?
Sure. Before I start that, though, I should have mentioned that I've been clerk for a long, long time, and I've heard several of you say you can't remember exactly when you joined. If anyone wants to know the exact date, give me a call and I can tell you exactly when you joined La Mesa. And also, having been members so long, Bill and I and Marty have been through several pastors, starting with Harry Summers and Howard Paul, who we all loved, and we left. We didn't see how that would happen, but we made it. And you know, a little bump with the co-pastors, but then Trey came. And, you know, being at La Mesa and raising our children here, and our grandchildren are all baptized at La Mesa, it's a great place. And it is the congregation that makes, you know, that keeps that going. And you have to remember that. So also, I've known Frank because I was liaison on COM when he came to St. Andrews. So COM's done a lot of things. So to get to where we go from here, pastor nominating committee will be selected and elected by the congregation, probably 5 to 7 people, with one person from session, probably not more than one, but sometimes, but the rest congregational members. And they'll begin the task of writing a new mission information form that's more in-depth than the one that was written for the interim. Probably do some work with congregation to get input from them. So that'll take a while to do that. And then they will put that out there for the, you know, just like we have for an interim on the Presbytery USA website for them to look at. So, you know, that process is not a quick one. The new mission information form will have to be approved by the session and by Commission on Ministry, just like the other one did. And then the PNC does that work. And it does, you know, they're not involved. The session is not involved with that choice. That's a PNC that does that. And so, Frank, would you like to add anything to that?
Thank you, Judy. Judy really knows this process well. I would just say this, that the folks that are on the search committee right now for the interim pastor, here's what I would say to the congregation is that the congregation really needs to support those folks, encourage them, and pray for them. And I think that the more that the congregation knows about how this process is working and what kind of person you're looking for to be your interim, the more it's transparent, you know, the better. And I guess I say this, I said this earlier, but I want to say it again. A good interim is worth their weight in gold. I mean, seriously. And people who've been in congregations where the interim was really trained and really experienced can do wonders for a congregation. So I would really encourage all of y'all to pray earnestly for your search committee, that you find the right person. I mean, it's almost as important in a way as the install pastor to get the right interim. And So it can happen. There are wonderful people out there that can come in here and help La Mesa move forward. And so I'd say earnestly pray for them that the right person emerges.
And if I could jump in right there, the team that actually is going to be doing the search for the interim, it fell again to personnel to start. And the personnel committee, as I said, I'm chairing that kind of by default this year, but Joel Wildridge is on it, Angela Jewel is on it, and Andrew Santos is also in personnel. We will be joined in that by session members, Susan Fillet, Winona Poole, and Diana Monahan.
Oh, great.
And we have the MIF. We finally got, because we wanted to change a couple of things on this mission, ministry information form from when session reviewed it earlier in January. So they are new, and it's a trio liaison from COM now. They did give us feedback. So I'll need Judy's signature on the form and I'll sign it, and then I can send it to Tiffany at Presbytery. But we will definitely keep the congregation informed of what we're doing and the progress we're making.
Thank you so much, Beth. And Judy, you referred to the PNC, which is the Pastor Nominating Committee, which would be the body of the church that does the hiring for the installed pastor, what I think of as the permanent pastor, which is silly.
Yeah.
Hopefully a long-term call. And that will be comprised primarily or solely of congregation members, not elders, is in that
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Normally one elder, just so you have that connection between the session and the pastor nominating committee. But this should not be driven by the session. This should be driven by the congregation. And that's what it's for. It's not a quick process, but it really works when everybody does what they're supposed to. Obviously, what we did with Trey was, we were ready for that because we'd had a troubled time with the co-pastors before, and we really looked long and hard for someone that would do that. We never dreamed he'd be there that long, but it worked. So, you just have to be patient and trust in the people doing the searches, that everything is going well and that the session is doing what they need to do.
Yeah. And
Susan, could I comment just real quickly? I was the liaison to Placitas Presbyterian Church when Drew Henry left and came to Emmanuel. And, Drew was much loved at Placitas, much like Trey has been at La Mesa. And there was heartbreak, there was sadness. But you know what? By the grace of God, and as Steve mentioned earlier, the providence of God that brought Guillermo Ayala to Camino, the same providence of God brought them Rich, who's their new pastor, and he's much appreciated there. So things go forward. They don't go real fast, as Judy said, but they do go forward.
And like Steve mentioned, this time of pandemic makes things difficult. The pastor at Las Placitas had never been to New Mexico, and we all going, what?
That's right.
Living in Ohio, I think grew up in the South, Georgia or someplace, but never been to New Mexico. And he and his wife and kids were looking forward to it. And we're going, this is different.
Yes, it's different.
Then he began his ministry by doing virtual things from Ohio. He has now moved here. But this pandemic, surely it will be over soon. But other pastors who have done this, they've not been able to make church visits and that kind of thing. But surely by the time we get there, they will. But I was amazed at someone who'd never been here. It's different than you're living. So. But they're thrilled with him. I know the folks at Placitas are just really happy with him. So it works.
Faith journey for sure. I know that we're running out of time. I see that Winona asked a question in the chat about the process for picking the PNC, which is again down the road a ways, but how does that work?
I think sometimes a session thinks of people that might be good and asks them, and also asks the congregation, is there somebody, if you're interested, let us know. And then the names get chosen down from there.
Okay, organic.
Yeah.
Are there any other?
There has to be a congregational meeting to elect them.
Yeah.
So they are elected by the congregation.
Right.
But the session does have is probably the one that looks at people who are interested and decides, so that you get a broad spectrum. You have, male, female, older and younger, and that kind of thing. So.
Diversity. Great. Is there any other questions that folks have that would like to raise them now?
Well, Steve mentioned riding bikes. I want to tell you that my sort of pastime is playing old guy softball, and my coach is Phil Brubaker, who is the greatest coach in the history of old guy softball.
That is cool.
That's a great story. Thank you. I love it. Kip, are you still on with us?
I don't think there's anyone else on the other screens now.
Okay. Okay.
Susan,
yeah.
Could I ask one thing? I know a lot of people are really familiar with acronyms. However, I would like to see us use the names of committees just to be sure we're including everybody in the conversation.
I think that's a really good point. And there are so many acronyms, especially when it comes to Presbyterian church things. So thank you, Betsy, for that.
Susan, I am here.
Okay, I wanted to just looking forward to next week. Would you like to give us a little preview shout out to what's going to be happening and going deeper? I mean,
Sure. So as part of the Going Deeper class, everyone knows we've done a lot of conversations around issues of racial justice in the past 8 or 9 months. And we have the next step that we're taking is we're going to do 3 sessions that include discussions and a mix of inside and outside folks focusing on issues and experiences of Indigenous people within La Mesa and New Mexico. Our first session is going to be next Sunday with June Lorenzo, who is a pastor and a ordained minister and a member of Laguna Pueblo. She's an attorney. She's been involved for decades in international advocacy for human rights and the rights of Indigenous peoples. So we're very pleased that she's going to be joining us next Sunday, and I hope everybody will join us as well. And then Beverly and I have been talking and have some good ideas for what we're going to do in the other 2 sessions, which will be coming in the next couple months.
Yep. Can we
Yes.
include the Native women that are still here? And I'm connected with a couple of them, and I think they would like to be a part of this.
And that's absolutely, Betsy, and that's one thing that Beverly and I were talking about. So,
Great.
And also with consulting, and I hope we're able to involve Judy in this conversation. So the technology is a little challenging, but it has been throughout this pandemic. So we'll overcome that.
Thank you so much, Kip. We're really fortunate to have June able to speak with us, and she's been just incredibly gracious in accepting the invitation. So thank you for helping to facilitate that. And then also a reminder, we have a congregational meeting next week at 10:30. So it'll be Going Deeper and then a meeting, and then you're free to do whatever you want. Go back your Sunday, watch your service, eat your lunch. Thank you all so much for being with us this morning. This feels like a really lovely start to the new, the next chapter. And we're so grateful for your help with that process, Beth and Frank and Steve, and to all of us connected to La Mesa. We will get through this, love in our hearts and hope in our hearts. And
thank you, Susan, for facilitating this.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
It's lovely to see you, Diane.